Welcome back to Let's Analyze Elsword Revamped. There's a link in the description if you'd like to read my fanfiction of Elsword before watching further. Ever since making the last video of the series, I've been really busy with university homework, so I didn't have as much time as I normally do when writing these chapters, which is why you might have seen a dip in quality, similar to the last chapter. I really want to get this fanfiction into gear, so look forward to chapter 10. Immediately, we learn that this chapter is in Ciel's perspective, and among the elves he is talking to, there's Lime, the same Lime epic NPC you can fight in the arena or summon with their card. The beginning of this chapter is happening several hours after chapter 5 and during the night of chapter 6 when Elsword and Reyna fight Lowe's cadets. As you might have guessed, the daytime of this chapter happens during chapter 7. This is incredibly ironic for those who know how salty people can be after a player versus player match. It's definitely not the best way to learn about humans of the real world, but it worked for other games with fighting tournaments, so it makes sense. When Ciel suggests how Ein should practice shaking hands with Rose, it's ironic because we know Ein is trying to get rid of her Dark L ever since chapter 5, so Ciel accidentally gave him a clever reason for pursuing that goal. You might be wondering why Rose is backing away instead of stopping Ein with a skill called Kill Point. This time, Ciel is with them, and it would seem unwelcoming if she decided to be more forceful to a fellow teammate in front of him. One of the main reasons why I decided to clarify how Zero is controlled by a person instead of making it unclear, like the game depicts him, is for the speech that Ciel gives. It would resonate with everyone listening by having Ciel specify Zero despite how they only see his robot instead of the human in control. It's true that Zero seemed hesitant about swearing together with Rose and Ein, but later on in this chapter I'll mention how Zero has accepted Ciel as part of the team. I know it's pretty obvious, but the guest house that Secret Service went into is Noelle's house from the previous chapter. Instead of info dumping all of this Nazad lore when it's more relevant at Altera or right before, it's better to take advantage of Rose and Zero's ignorance of the Nazad War. That way, Nazads won't sound as rushed together as they were in the game. If you remember, this quote is exactly what Reyna said to Ciel in chapter 4. I don't like the idea of flashback quotes, but it has been a while since that chapter was published compared to this chapter, so it's a good refresher. This nighttime watch that Ciel has against Ein is here to show how persistent Ein is, especially with the opportunity that he's got, and it's to show how incredibly good Ciel's ears are. We know from chapter 2 that Ein can sense the L that everything is made of, so when he opens the bedroom door, he can tell that Ciel began peeking out of one eye right after, so that's why Ein stayed in his room until 2 hours passed, hoping Ciel would fall asleep. For those who can't understand how Ciel figured out Zero pulled an all-nighter, the supervisor mentioned how Ciel couldn't handle one all-nighter, so how else would he know that unless he stayed up at the same time for the same duration of the night? If Zero didn't accept Ciel as part of the team, he wouldn't have asked to take turns with him next time they pull another all-nighter to protect Rose from Ein. If Zero still didn't trust Ciel, he would pull another all-nighter at the same time as him without telling, like he did last night. Now, there's a high enough trust between Ciel and Zero that they can permit the other person to protect Rose while the other is sleeping. The reason why their trust is higher is because they both know either of them can stay up all night in order to guard Rose's bedroom. When Secret Service passed through the western gate of Elder, there was no mention of any knights guarding the entrance, unlike how Ellis's had to go through 4 of them. Ciel explains what happened to all the knights, and even though I will explain this again the next time we return to Ellis's perspective, I thought it would be nice to learn sooner rather than much later. The Wisp enemy was removed when the Shadow Forest dungeon was revamped, but strangely enough, Ein still mentions them in one of his dungeon victory quotes. In the original Shadow Forest dungeon, Wisp enemies would go into non-hostile stationary Ent sprinkled throughout the rooms, which would possess the Ent into becoming enemies for the player to defeat. I described Wisps as demons instead of mischievous spirits because it makes more sense that way. Hoffman describes the demonic energy inside the Shadow Forest being the reason why monsters have appeared, so why would it be spirits instead of demons being the culprit? Spirits just sound unrelated compared to demons. Destroyer's Chain is Rose's Black Massacre hyperactive skill, and some of you may question why she has that available so soon. After all, it's only because the large L is restored in El Reno that this job advancement happens, right? Yes, that's true, but it's also true for a lot of other job paths, which is pretty unoriginal, even if it makes a little bit of sense. Instead of handling things like that, I'd rather have some job paths be unlocked through progression of certain events. With those focused on Dark L, it would be based on time and control of that Dark L. We've seen how much control Rose has on this foreign power, and it's been several days after Rose and Zero have entered Elrios if she can say Los cadets train at the Tree of El every morning in the beginning of Chapter 2. Here's the best example of Ciel's excellent hearing. Without looking, he can tell Echo is running north. The running part isn't so hard, but hearing her go north instead of west or east with all the screaming from Echo is what stands out from Ciel's perspective. I really hope by this point of the fanfiction, readers understand the significance of Secret Service. They don't progress the story very much compared to the El Search Party, but there's lore mentioned in these SS chapters that Elsword, Aisha, and Reyna have no reason to talk about. Not only that, but the events of Secret Service will become relevant for the El Search Party much later. If you like this video or the fanfiction, show your support in the comments or with a review on fanfiction.net.